Hello fellow knobheads and beat people. I'm George, the GentlemanRocker. This is a jack-off, and today we're talking about the Deepmind 12. So, let's talk. Well, let's start with what is the Deepmind 12. If you haven't heard it, let me just get to the informations. It's a little bit weird as there seems to be no Behringer website for the synth right now, which is a bit strange. But the Deepmind 12 is a 12-voice polyphonic analog synth, so it's fully analog. And yeah, it's very impressive. It looks really cool, but it has some features. Well, I haven't tested it, I've just seen some videos online, but there are some features that are missing for me, and some features I would like to see in the desktop version to make me consider buying it. So yeah, let's see what we've got. So the Deepmind 12 is of course 12 voice polyphonic, and you can do some unison modes, which is one thing I could use. And as the Deepmind 12 doesn't have a really real sequencer, so there's a sequencer that can do some note sequencing, but it's not meant to be a real sequencer for notes. It's kind of not what I need. So I need instruments with sequencer built in. And this is the one thing I don't like about the Deepmind 12. But it's understandable as it's a synth for players. So there's that. So if there's a desktop version, it needs to have a really cool sequencer to make it run standalone. This would be nice. And the other thing, if there's no sequencer, it needs a kind of keyboard split. This way I could use it together with my circuit and have one sequencer from the circuit play the one multi-timbral part and the other one. So I could double my sounds at least, which isn't the best, but it's doable. So it would be useful. And yeah, that really kind of bugged me out of it. I was really impressed with the sound and that you can do a lot with just touching the knobs. I don't really like that some stuff is buried in menus again, but I guess if you want to reach a certain price point, which was $1,000 in this case, I guess you have to stop somewhere. So you have a lot of stuff that you can reach directly from the front without touching the menu. And if you want to go deeper, there is a menu, a big display, and the iPad app, which could be interesting because that could bring a sequencer in it also. So maybe you can program the sequencer in the app that plays the synth. Maybe one way to go. But let's talk about some of the features a little bit more. It has a built-in effects processor with a lot of effects and ways to sequence them in row besides each other, so you can have a really elaborate effects rack built into it. You have a 2 or 4 pole low pass filter per voice, so nice. The build is like you have a small selection for the sequencer, which, as I said, is not really a musical sequencer, but more of a performance sequencer for different values like filter, cutoff and stuff like that. Yes, you can work with notes, but it's not that easy as pressing step 1, pressing the note, step 2, and have your line. So it's a little bit fickly. You can do it. I get that, but yeah, it's not meant to be that. So that's a little bit, I don't know. You have 2 LFOs, which is cool. More LFOs. One thing that really was missing when doing some stuff on the Korg Mini-Log was another LFO. So I love to have LFOs that change the sound very organic, and 1 LFO is okay, the more the better. So 2 LFOs can do a lot more. Yeah, it's cool. I really like the idea, but it's not for me. So looks cool. Then you have 2 DCOs. One is a little bit slimmed down, not like the Korg Mini-Log, but then again you have more waveforms and stuff in the Deepmind 12. So there's that. So you have 1 oscillator with more waveforms and more settings, and therefore you have the second one, which is a little bit slimmed down. I can work with that. It's okay. Some people have problems with it being a slightly better copy of a very well-known Roland synth. But then again, this are probably the same people that are bugging Roland to do a better version of the synth. So it's kind of why not? Why shouldn't they take a very well known and good sounding synth and build up from that? I don't see a problem there. Of course, it feels a little bit strange if it's not the same company. But then again, if you build a synth, you have just some bricks to work with. You have the LFOs, you have the VCOs or DCOs and stuff like that, filter, and you can do it in some ways, but not that much if you want to have a very standard sounding synth. So it's okay for me, no problem with that. The real problem that I have is you have 12 voices and only 10 fingers. So of course you can go unison and have 6 voices, 4 voices, 3, 2, whatever. But the 12 voices are a little bit much for a monotimbral synth, so you can only play 1 sound. If you could say I'll take 6 voices and 6 voices for another sound, like you could do a pad sound on the one hand and a bass sound on the other, that would be nice. So but the Deepmind 12 reminded me of a Kickstarter I've seen, and that's where I started looking around, and there's a company called Futuresonus, and they're selling the Parva synth, which is a very interesting small desktop synth. I was very intrigued with it as I saw it the first time, but didn't have the money to go. I guess it was Kickstarter or something like that. I guess Kickstarter, yeah. And now they're taking pre-orders, and I'm really thinking about getting one, because when you look around, there are some people that kickstarted this synth who got it, and there's constant operating system updates, and it sounds really nice. It has some neat features that I want talk about here, because it's a little bit of I don't like that, then I found this. So if I have something that I don't like, I want to have some thing to show you that may fit. And for me, I want this analog sounding synth that I can program really easy, that has a understandable flow. So this would be the Deepmind 12, but the Parva has the same thing. So if you look at it, I will probably show it here somewhere. This synth is a little box. It's the desktop synth, no keys at all, not even buttons. Some of the knobs are pressable, so you have some buttons, but optically only knobs. It's really minimalistic from the look, and I really like it. It's built really understandable and has a lot of features that I really like. It's pure analog also, and it's not only polyphonic but also multi-timbral. It has 8 voices max, so it's not 12, but hey, I'm fine with that. And it's 8 voice multi-timbral, so you could use each sound, each voice with another sound on another MIDI channel and send stuff from your sequences to it if you want to. Or you take the first 4, make it a really fat sounding pad, take 1 or 2 maybe to make a really cool bass-like sound, and have 2 for brass or something like that. So really cool. It's fully digital controllable, so you can send MIDI for every thing to it. You have a mod matrix built in and stuff like that. You can really program your sounds, and it's built really in a really interesting way. If you look at it, it has the oscillator on the top row with 5 different values to change, but you can also go into the menu, which is on each level. Each of these rows has its own display with its own menu for this setting. So you got your oscillator sounds, setup values in this menu. Then you have the envelopes, which are, I guess, 3 or 4. Take a look. Oscillators, envelopes, 4 4-stage envelopes. Then you have LFOs, 4 per voice, which is really, really cool. And you have stuff like polyphonic aftertouch, and with having each voice on a different MIDI channel, you can do some really cool stuff like bending one note from a chord. If you play the chord and you send each note to another MIDI channel, which is doable, then you can bend one of the channels but not the other ones, so you could do a chord and bend the middle note for whatever reason. Drop it from major to minor or something like that. Then you have 2-pole and 4-pole filter, low pass or high pass, and a 2-pole band pass filter, 2 per voice, which is also big. Then you have some inputs and outputs. You have individual stereo line outputs for each voice, so you can stereo out each voice or a mix of all of them. So if you want to have it in your setup, you can send out the mix, but if you are recording stuff, not just playing, you can get each channel, each voice on a different channel. And it has a USB port for MIDI in and out, and a USB host, so you can take a keyboard that's class compliant and just plug it in there and use it, which is really cool if you want to play it with a keyboard, but maybe some sequences will work too. It's not too big and has a really cool look. I really like it. And This could be interesting as you can split the sounds. So you could use maybe 6 voices on MIDI channel 1 and send pads to it from a sequencer, and have 2 more voices that you can play as maybe you could make a really cool sounding bass patch. You have 3 oscillators per voice, so you could have 6 slightly detuned oscillators, maybe 3 detuned and one octave below. You could do some really fat sounds with it. And one neat thing is you can buy the synth with 8 voices for $1,000, I guess, or euro. Let me have a look. Yeah, it's $1,000 for the 8 voice, but you can get a monophonic, just 1 voice synth for $500, 2 voice polyphonic for $600, 3 voice polyphonic for $700, 4 voice for $800, 5 voice for $900, and the 8 voices for $1,000. And if you get the 4 voice, because you only have the money now, you can get more voices for $100. So you can later build it up to be what you want it to be. It's a really cool idea, and they're taking pre-orders and shipping in October, I guess. So it's not that far away. Really cool little box. And if you compare them, yeah, of course you get more sounds with the Deepmind 12. And if you're a keyboard player, you get keys with it, which may be cool. You don't have a sequencer at all in the Parva, so you would need another sequencer. If you need one anyhow, so you would need it for the Deepmind 12. And I don't really know if there's an analog synth that has a built-in sequencer, which is not only 16 steps like the Korg Minilog. So I would need something that could sequence, of course, the notes like the Minilog did, but it needs to have patterns or more steps. As I tend to do a lot of music with chord changes, and I would really like to have my analog sounding or real analog pads to play these chord changes, as that's what my music is a lot about. So I most of the time have some pads that play a chord progression and play a bass or melody over it that also plays over this chord progression. So I do a lot of melodic stuff. The Korg Minilog didn't really work the way I wanted, so that's why I sent it back. 4 voices would be enough, but if I could get 8 for 200 more, I probably would get 8 voices. And I really like that the Parva has a lot of LFOs and envelopes. You have 4 envelopes that you could send to filters, or you could change the LFO with it, stuff like that. You could change the wave with it. So there's a lot of cool stuff that you can do, which I guess is a good way to go. Tell me what you're thinking about it. What is your position on analog synths with sequences? Do you know anything that I don't know? Because I want to get the Parva probably sometime later. But if there's something else I don't know, I would like to know. Yeah, let's talk about it. What do you think about the Deepmind 12? I think sound-wise and money-wise, it's a really interesting synth, and it will give a lot of cool sound to a lot of players that couldn't get what they wanted. So it's a really interesting thing. And the Parva is another thing which is really interesting, not only for keyboard players, but also for all this Rolly C-board and instrument players, because you can bend one of the notes or each note individually when you send all notes to different MIDI channels. Interesting stuff. If you like this, click the subscribe button, maybe drop some likes on this video, and check in next time. I'm George, the Gentleman Rocker, and I see you later. Rock on.